Hello friends, today we are going to talk about this cactus. This is called Spring Cactus, or it is also called Easter Cactus, at, as it blooms during the springtime or in and around Easter time. So this is also called the Easter Cactus. You'll find three varieties of this kind of cactus. This is Spring Cactus, which blooms during the spring. Another one is called Christmas Cactus, and another one is called Easter Cactus. They look more or less same. Their leaves looks more or less same, and it is very difficult to distinguish between these three cactus. But the Christmas cactus blooms during the Christmas time, in and around the Christmas time, and Thanksgiving cactus blooms during the Thanksgiving time. So they are named in the way according to their bloom. Now this is not a desert cactus, it's a tropical cactus. It is grown inside a forest, on the top of the tree, on the top of the stone, and on decomposed wood, etc. So you need to maintain a humidity to grow this plant. 50% to 60% of humidity will be better for this plant. So if you are staying in a dry place, what you can do is you can keep a bowl of water near this plant. When it evaporates, you can use that water. This plant blooms during the summertime, and if you provide ideal condition, it blooms in late summer also, and it blooms in spring and summer, late summer. So twice in a year this plant bloom. Now if you are not getting buds, if this plant is not getting a flower, so that means it's lacking the darkness. This plant needs a darkness of 6 to 8 weeks, of 12 to 8 hours every day. So what you can do is you can take your plants in a dark room at night, okay, and in the morning again you need to bring back to its light, where it gets light. If you don't want to change the position of the plant, what you can do is you can take the box, right, paper box, or this pot bigger than the where you have planted the plot, and you can cover this plant at night before you sleep, and in the morning you can remove this. So if you do this continuously for 6 to 8 weeks, so you will find lots of bloom. So now you can keep this plant outdoor as well as indoor. If you are keeping it outdoor, keep out from the direct sunlight. If indoor temperature is 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, it's ideal to keep it inside. East facing or north facing window will be best to keep this plant. You get lot of bloom. Now the most frustrating thing in this plant is these plants drop the segments and the buds. So now let's talk about the dropping of segments. So now you will find dropping of segments. So if you overwater this plant, its root is going to rot and its segments start dropping. So now there are three main reasons for dropping the buds after it is developed. First is overwatering, second lack of humidity, and third is insufficient light. If this plant is not getting sufficient light, you need to take to the place where it gets sufficient light, and as I told you, humidity of 50 to 60% is needed. If you are staying in dry place, you can keep a cup of water or bowl of water near this plant so that it can use the humidity, and you can use the fertilizer also. You can fertilize it. If it is dropping the buds, you can fertilize. Now talking about the fertilizer, I usually use a bone meal and DAP alternatively once in a month. So it likes slow releasing fertilizer. Use the slow releasing fertilizer. So use the slow releasing fertilizer. I use DAP. Okay, DAP. I use DAP, 1 spoon of DAP, and I use bone meal. What I do is I just dig the top layer of the soil and I put the DAP out here. Then I just cover that DAP or a bone meal with same soil and water it thoroughly. So once in a month. Don't over fertilize this plant. So almost all the flowering plants like to get fertilized. So before 1 month of develop its bud, so stop fertilizing. So since this plant start getting the birds in the month of March, so you can stop fertilizing at the end of January. So after the bloom, so do not water this plant for 6 weeks. After post bloom, you don't need to water this plant for 6 weeks. Keep it in dry place, let the plant rest for 6 weeks. Now after that you will see the new segment forming. So now new segment forming, you can give the water and you can give the fertilizer at that time. So talking about the soil, so I use the well drained soil. I've used one part of this vermicompost, one part of garden soil, and one part of sand. Other than this, I've used this leaf decomposed, or you can say leaf mold, and the decomposed, and some pieces of decomposed wood. If you have, you can use this. You can use perlite also, you can use peat moss also. So now if you don't have, you just can use the vermicompost or decomposed cow dung compost, one part of sand and one part of garden soil. Well drained soil is best for this plant. So now if your flower is getting damaged, you can remove that flower, and if it has already bloomed, you can remove that flower. So bright but indirect sunlight is best for this plant. Now container, alright, container should be well draining container. Use the well draining container. You can use this type of any kind of container, okay, well draining container. Don't use too big container, or don't use too small container. You can prune this plant during the month of March. People usually prune this plant, don't do hard pruning. So or after 1 month of post blooming, you can prune this plant, so you'll get the new segment and a good amount of flowering in next season. So propagation, talking about this propagation, you can take the 3 segment of this plant, or at least 3 segment of this plant, and you can take the 3 segment of this plant, and you can put the last segment inside the soil. All right, ½ inch of last segment is inside the soil. So you can use the same potting mix as where you are planting the cactus, this spring cactus, or you can, some people they propagate in water also. Water is also good medium for propagation. So now if you keep your plants in a direct sunlight, this will be the condition. You might be thinking, what happened to this plant? Okay, because of this direct sunlight, this plant has become like this. So don't keep it in direct sunlight. Always try to keep away from direct sunlight. So you can propagate in water also. So if you provide a good humidity, 50 to 60% of humidity, bright sunlight, and ideal temperature, so this plant is going to bloom very nicely. In my case, the red plant is not blooming very nicely. As you can see, I have given the very big pot. And do not repot the plant when it is in the bloom. You can repot the plant. When to repot this plant? After 2 to 3 years. After every 2 to 3 years, when your pot is full of roots, in that case you can give a little bit bigger pot. Don't use too big pot, as I already said. So this plant will give a beautiful look to your garden. So my plant is blooming. So during the sunlight, today the sun is not shining, so, and it is a cold area, so during the sunshine you will get a full bloom. You will see the flower, okay, all the flowers are open. It looks very beautiful. This will increase the beauty of your garden. So try to plant. Even the people, those who are staying in hot places, can try this plant, provided a suitable condition, as I have mentioned. So guys, this is it for today. So we are going to meet in next video with next plant. So stay home, stay safe. If you are going outside, use masks. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching HR Garden. Keep watching HR Garden.